Good morning. My name is Tim Kramer. Thank you for joining us today for this kind of update on the new things going on with GitHub. GitHub Universe recently happened a couple weeks ago, and there's a recap that we'd like to share with you that we feel is going to be very beneficial and help you kind of look at your plans and things that might be interesting for GitHub in the future. If you're unfamiliar with Lean Techniques, we're a technology and management consulting company based in Iowa. We help organizations turn technology into a competitive advantage by equipping the leaders and the teams they have with confidence in five skill areas, including software delivery, cloud, product management design, leadership, and strategy, as well as AI. We are a Microsoft partner and have three Microsoft most valuable professionals on our team, including one of today's presenters, Daniel Ward. With that, I'm excited to shift our gears into the main conversation. As we dive into today's session, feel free to drop any questions into the chat and we'll try to address them along the way or leave time at the end for Q&A. For our guides today, I'm excited to introduce Daniel Ward, a staff engineer and Microsoft MVP, and Patrick Robertson, also a staff engineer here at Lean Techniques. I'll let you both take it away from here.
So thanks everyone for coming. Patrick and I are pretty close to this stuff at the moment, since we are doing a lot of coaching specifically around GitHub Copilot right now. General outline of this presentation is going to be going over these new things called Agent HQ and Mission Control and custom agents. These first two sections is going to be most of where our coding demos are. Then I'm also going to go over new quality and security stuff, new metrics and governance stuff for your org, and the yearly report that GitHub puts out, which I think is one of the cool parts. Basically, the purpose of this presentation is a lot of stuff happening at GitHub Universe. Everything we're going to talk about, you can find about online for yourself, but it's probably going to take you many hours to do that. In fact, I will even link you to the GitHub docs and all that at the end of this presentation, and you can find everything we talk about there. But it's a lot of articles to read through. So basically what we try to do is read through all that, watch the keynote, all that good stuff, distill it into what, in our opinion, is the important stuff, and just do that over an hour. And sometimes it's easier to watch content than to read it. Okay? So that's what we're going to try to do for you here. Okay, so this first thing, Agent HQ and Mission Control. These are some new things they talked about at Universe this year. What are these things? So Agent HQ is not really a feature. It's this like philosophy shift they kind of talked about at the conference. Obviously, everyone's pushing AI right now. GitHub's no different. They're saying instead of just using AI as this developer tool that you use in your workflow to like, as an autocomplete or to get you snippets or to help give you ideas, it should instead be this kind of like overarching thing you orchestrate to have multiple things running in tandem. And we'll see some of that with some of these features. So we take a look at my fancy diagrams here. So before and after, before this philosophy shifts, they're saying this is probably what your code flow is like. You have some kind of cycle of coding, prompting, and refactoring. And at some point, you're done and you make a pull request, right? Maybe you go back to that loop. But at some point, you merge it. And with Agent HQ, with this philosophy shift, kind of the idea is it's not just your IDE anymore. It's you can access the same features from all these things, VS Code, the GitHub app, the GitHub website, or the Copilot CLI, which itself is fairly new. You can do the same things from all of those, which is create a custom agent for this task if you want, assign that agent to do something. It does it asynchronously, and you can just monitor it. You can correct and steer it if you want. And when that agent is done, it creates a pull request, a draft pull request. So this can be your starting point if you want. We always say you must validate everything that AI puts out. Doesn't matter that it did this cool thing and made a PR all by itself. You got to check every single line of code that it made to make sure it's correct. So it doesn't change anything like not writing tests anymore. You still have to do that. Running the app yourself, making sure everything works, obviously. So I'm saying practically this dev loop is still included in here somewhere, right? It might be at different places in the cycle. You might go back and forth, but practically the dev, the human in the loop still needs to be there. Okay. Okay. So that being said, mission control is a feature. This is this new dashboard, which I am about to show you, this new UI on github.com, where you can see all these agents and tasks running all in one place, and you can manage them from there. Like I said in that diagram, you can use them in all four of those different places. Let's go to the website. We just had these screenshots in here in case github.com was throwing a fit and wasn't working, but I think it will work. Okay, so here's my little demo repo I'm going to use for this presentation. And this button is not new, this chat with Copilot, but what is new is this open agent. And I'm actually going to give it something to run with real quick. We do have some custom agents in this repository already, and you can say select custom agent. There's 3 in here. These are in the .github folder. If I open those up, and there's an agents folder now, you can see we have those 3 in here. They're just markdown files. So for instance, if I click on Docs Expert, it's just giving a bunch of instructions to Copilot on how it should behave. In this case, this agent is really good at creating docs. At least that's the idea. So I'm going to choose Docs Expert and say, just something simple, make me a better README with diagrams and stuff. This repo, because I don't really have a good README or anything right now. And I'm just going to start task, send it off on its way, and then I'm going to click View All. And this is actually mission control. Okay. So from here, we have a recent sessions. Here's the stuff on the left side, agent sessions. And they very much encourage you to have multiple things running at once. And you can see them all from over here, right? And chats, you can see them here as well. I don't have any chats right now, but this was the existing feature. It's just that now they're all grouped in the same spot as your agent tasks. So I can click on my task I just started off. And you can see it's sort of like starting to do its work. On the right side here, it said, thanks for asking me to work on this. You're welcome. I'll get started on this. It hasn't done much yet. It's just sort of planning. These, in my experience, these usually take like 10 plus minutes to run. So I am not going to wait on this. But what I do want to show you is right here in the text box here, you can see it says steer active session while it's working. So you can give Copilot instructions while it's already running after it's been kicked off to change its direction, give it updates, whatever, right? So I'm going to say something simple, like actually make sure the summary at the top of the README is at most 2 sentences. And so it'll see that, and then we'll see what the output is when it finally finishes. But I personally think that is pretty darn cool. You can also see its plan here, what it's deciding to do, and when it's finally done, we'll see its PR. You can already see it's made its own branch here at Copilot/improve README with diagrams. So that's pretty cool. I do have some agent tasks I already kicked off previously that have finished. Those already have PRs made. So let's click into one of these here. I want this conference listing one. So I haven't merged any of these yet on purpose. Real quick, let me show you the app I'm working with because it's very simple. This is the default Next.js app. Okay. So all I did was use create next app, and then I put hero UI into it, which is just a component library, but I did not create any pages or anything. So if I go to these sites, maybe compiling, definitely the most fun part of programming. Basically, what you're going to see, it's just a very plain site. It's going to be the default Next.js app. And then I'll show you Copilot's work, what it did just from one of my simple tasks. So that's compiling. Let me explain how I kicked off this PR. Here it goes. Go here. Okay, so here it is. This is the default Next.js app, right? I didn't do anything tricky here. And if I switch back to the branch that Copilot did work on, this add conference listing feature, Let me run it again here. It's going to compile again. So while that's running, let me explain how I did this. So it did this PR, right? It said implements a conference discovery page displaying tech events because I just thought that would be cool. And it does quite a bit of explanation. It says, "Hey, here's a snippet of how I did my implementation," and it even gives me screenshots in the PR description of what it made. So at some point it did something like run the app and then take screenshots and then put these in here, right? And you can talk to it again within the pull request and get more updates. And I'll show some of that here. You can even request Copilot as a reviewer on the Copilot PR. Yeah, that's what I did here. And it kind of gave some corrections to itself, which I think is kind of funny. Um, but you might have noticed on my comment on this PR, there is this little Slack symbol. And that is because I kicked this off from Slack. So this is a new feature. Let me pull my Slack thread over here. You have to add the GitHub app to your Slack account and give it the proper permissions. But it's really not complicated. What I did here was say long thread. Okay. I said, I think it would be pretty cool if this site, which is just the base Next.js set, right, had a feature that showed all the current and upcoming conferences. They should be displayed in a grid with the name, date, link, and tags, which are things like languages, the type of conference, etc. And the user should be able to sort and search by all of those things. So, in my opinion, these are not very good requirements. They're not very specific, but I kind of wanted to see what Copilot would do. And then you just say at GitHub, start working on this, basically. And this also works with Linear and Microsoft Teams and then is in public preview for Azure boards as well. This works with all of these. And then I had to fix my permissions. But once that did that, it gave me a little check mark, which means, hey, I'm working on this. And it gives you this message. And as it's running, it actually updates this message. So before you get this finished result, it kind of puts its plan in that message and then puts a check mark next to those plan items as it finishes them. And then it says, hey, I'm done. Here, go check out the PR. And you can even give it updates to do. I said, hey, I also want a footer at the bottom of the page for things like contact, about us, follow us, etc. It should also use pleasing icons. I said, okay, I'm going to work on it. Now, what I was curious about, which seems like it wasn't able to do, was if I could put it in a separate branch for that footer work and create a separate PR while staying in the same Slack thread. I said, can you put the footer work in a separate branch? And it actually did put it in a separate branch, but it told me it was not able to make a separate pull request for that. I would have to do that myself. And I thought it was kind of cool that it saw it wasn't able to do that. It said, I've created the branch. However, I don't have the necessary permissions to push the branch to origin or create a PR. So it was cool that it saw it couldn't do that. I was like, okay, fine. And I told it to put the footer work back in, and it seemed to do that correctly. So let's go look at what Copilot did from that. Let's refresh here. And you can see it put this browse conferences button here. So I'll click on that. Okay, so this is all from Copilot, right? Just me giving it English prompts in Slack, right? I think this is pretty cool. Here's the footer work. These don't link to any specific page, which is probably fair because I didn't tell it I had a page, right? Um, I can sort by tags and stuff, right? There's even a clear all. I think this is pretty dang cool. What's really cool is that these seem to be real conferences with actual links to the conference that it made. So I didn't expect it to do that, but like React Summit, I can click on this view website. This is a real thing. So I think that's pretty darn cool. I did make a new thread on Slack. I said, hey, we should have a few advertisements at the top, header or something for our products. We don't have those at LT. I was just kind of curious what it would do. And I told it to work on it. I was kind of rude to it here. So when the AI uprising happens, I'll probably be one of the first to go. But I actually have not looked at the work it's done on this yet. So let's just do it live. Let's see what happens. Let's run that. And this is not going to have the conference stuff in it, right? Because this is a separate branch. I didn't merge this into main or anything yet. There we go. So I think that looks pretty good. This is just the base page here, but these things at top says, hey, look, why not take a look at our courses and books? I think that's pretty darn cool. These look pretty good to me right off the bat. In a real production app, you'd probably want to go in and like make sure this code is correct and make some edits to it, make some tweaks. But I really like this as a starting point, right? So those are the PRs it made. Um, you'll also notice on the Copilot comments, there's this implement suggestion button now. I'm not going to go through this, but if I click it, you can see it just kind of pre-populates a comment for you. And it'll go and work on that as a task, kind of like I showed you before. So that's also quite cool, in my opinion. And that's kind of the one of, I guess, the big updates, maybe the big update from GitHub Universe is this new UI and this new way of working with that UI that you should be orchestrating all these tasks together, and then maybe going and cleaning up after it's done, seeing if it just went completely off the rails, maybe that kind of thing. I'm actually a little surprised it finished that quickly on my docs task. So you can see here, overview. This is really just like a miniature pull request view, but it's kind of cool. You can see it all in the same view. And this is very similar to like a ChatGPT kind of view over here on the left. It's just explaining what it did. Or if you've used Copilot Chat and VS Code, it probably looks pretty pretty similar to that. Looks pretty familiar. And here's the summary after it's done. So let's click on View Pull Request over here in the top right, and that will take me directly here. So messed up just laying Markdown or Mermaid for some reason, but I'm kind of curious what it came up with for this. Let's look at it here. Or not. Oh, it's because this is a draft PR, maybe? I don't know. I'm not going to mess with that right now. But let's just look at it in here. So this looks like a pretty good README. Um, it looks like it did follow my steering correction at the top. This summary is 2 sentences. I said at most 2 sentences. So that's pretty darn cool. Made some mermaid diagrams for me. I think I did say in my description with diagrams, etc. So it did indeed do that. Pretty
Sorry,
cool.
sorry to interrupt you, Daniel, but I think you might need to fetch because that created that branch. I don't think you've
Oh,
fetched since you kicked
you're
it off.
right.
That's probably why.
That's okay. I don't need to preview the market. It is good enough. I just wanted to show the work it did. So this is pretty cool. So let's go back to our slides here. So mission control, like I just showed you, it's this new UI for managing all your agents and all your chats and steering them all from the same screen. And again, this is not just github.com. This is the mobile app, GitHub CLI and VS Code as well, right? So the idea is you can do the same functions, get the same features from no matter where you're using this from. Kind of supposed to be ubiquitous, right? There's also some new branch controls that give you more granular checks. Like if this was made by AI, which those PRs were tagged with that. If I go back here, you'll see these PRs say AI because Copilot made them. So they're made by AI. You might want to have specific CI/CD checks run on that, or you might not want to have checks run on it yet, right? And identity features coming from this stuff for this stuff. So you can manage the agents just like you would manage devs on your team. And with that, Patrick is now going to talk about custom agents in Copilot. So I will let
Yeah.
him take away the share.
All right. Yeah. So custom agents, it's something I'm very passionate about. And one of the main updates is that so if you've been using Copilot for a while, there was this thing called chat modes, and now chat modes are basically getting renamed to agents. So as far as like if you're familiar with chat modes, it's kind of similar as far as the how you write your markdown. There's a few things that are a little bit different from like the actual setup, like the folder location and all the things like that. But what agents are now, you can define them and you use them in all of the different ways of Copilot, whether it's in Copilot chat. As you saw earlier, Daniel kind of showed with kicking off a coding agent, you can specify which agent you want to use for your actual tasks that you're kicking off. Also in the Copilot CLI, and we'll also get to play with some of that today too. Um, yeah, I just mentioned those, the CLI coding agent. And then also, Copilot now supports the agents.md file. So I know with all the different tooling out there, there's like the was it AgentsMD was the OpenAI one, and then I think Claude for Claude Code and things like that. So that's cool that there's now some crossover with AgentsMD. And also with the updates from the recent GitHub Universe, there's this thing called Plan Mode. Basically, it's a new mode to help you plan, but it uses an agent, and you use this to build out the to-do list and like to feed into agent mode. And we're going to also play with that a little bit today too. Uh, but also some of these little screenshots are in here for the slides. So like if you go back and see the slides later, you kind of have context since there was a demo. But let's kind of go ahead and play with it a little bit. So I've got the repo here. I'm going to do a git pull just to make sure I have all the latest branches and things. But what we're going to do here is over on the right, you can see this build agent. I'm actually going to click the button to make it the main thing. Actually, before we do that, let's show you one of the agents. So we have this front end developer agent, kind of straightforward. There's just a system prompt. You kind of tell the agent some rules, things to do, kind of like a persona. And so what we've got here is this front end agent is told to be like you're a repository aware front end development assistant for this project. Follow these rules when reading or modifying code in this repository. And then we have a list of different rules of like being knowledgeable in the latest in React and Next and TypeScript and all that stuff. And so there's a lot of definition in here. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go over here before using that agent. We're actually going to make let's make another agent just for the heck of it. And we're going to use the plan mode. And I'm gonna show you a cool little thing that's coming in VS Code pretty soon with the GitHub Copilot chat, and that's called a handoff. I mentioned that very briefly in the slide, but in the handoffs, you'll see when we get to the end of making a plan. I need to make a plan. Let's see, what kind of agent do we want?
And the reason
Uh,
Patrick is able to do this now in VS Code is because he's using VS Code
oh,
Insiders, right?
yes, thank you for calling that out. I am using VS Code Insiders, so some of the things are in preview. I will say the features that we mentioned for Copilot CLI are going to be available in Copilot CLI as is because Copilot CLI itself is in preview. So all of the fun things to remember. But yeah, I think maybe what we can do here is let's just make a TD. Let's make a TDD red green refactor agent for this code base. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send it. And we're basically in plan mode, and it's probably going to maybe ask me questions, or we're going to work through together to like build out a plan. And at the end of the planning session, so I'm probably just going to let it just give me the plan for the sake of demonstration. But I'll show you what a handoff is because I feel like a handoff is best described by seeing it happen rather than me telling you what it is or walking through like what the code looks like to set it up. And I say code loosely because uh, it's going to be in YAML in the front matter for the when you define your agents. So basically, what it's doing, it's looking through the code base um, to see how it wants to build a new agent. I didn't give it any context of like, hey, go use documentation, go look at the latest from GitHub's website. I could have also said, hey, look at our existing agents, but I'm kind of letting it do its thing to kind of show you just a vanilla example of, hey, I want to do a thing in plan mode. And you can see it's kind of doing all the things where it's going and reading through the code base to look for stuff and it's working. So while it's working, I'll kind of at a high level describe a handoff since it's about to be able to do that. But basically, what a handoff is so from plan mode, at the end of it, it's going to give me two options to either edit the plan or start implementing the plan. So you can see at the bottom of plan mode, as it just output the results, there's these two buttons now. So from plan mode, the handoff is I can hand off from the planning agent to agent mode to start implementing the plan, or I can open up the plan in an editor. And so it looks like right now it's going to create the agent in the right place. It's going to give it tools, the search, edit, and run commands. These are all things that probably would want in a TDD agent. It's giving a definition for red, green, and refactor, and then test infrastructure, vite config. Yeah, some boilerplate stuff. So I think I can go ahead and hit start implementation. So this handoff is going to switch it to agent mode. If you noticed, it went from plan to agent in the text box. And then now I can hit send and it will start doing the work. Uh, but I guess I might as well, I'll just delegate it to a coding agent so we can move on to the next thing. So what this is going to do is I'm going to send it to the cloud agent. And because I'm in VS Code Insiders, I believe that you have to enable this feature. There's an experimental feature, I think, in VS Code. But over here on the left, I have the VS Code equivalent of like the mission control kind of, it's called agent sessions, where I can actually see all of the different chats that I've been doing. Oh, I need to hit delegate. So one
And this
second.
would be kind of the example of doing the same thing, but in all four spots. So we can do it for VS Code too.
Yeah. And so what it's doing is it's go ahead and doing that. It's spinning up the Copilot coding agent over on github.com. So while that's running, I will go ahead and sort of switch over to let's do something with Copilot CLI using one of our existing agents. So let's see. I just have to type in Copilot and let me make this the main thing. So here we're in Copilot CLI. It didn't do the animation because I have opened it before now. But if you open it for the first time, it does this cool little like. I think I can actually.
It's a
I'm
really
gonna.
nice animation.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to remember what the command is. But there's a way to get it to show the banner again. I feel like it's pretty cool. Oh yeah, it's
Oh,
just Copilot
so
banner.
dash dash banner. Right.
Yeah. So it's
It's a
gonna
very
open and
impressive ASCII
yeah.
image. Like,
See.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but what we're gonna do here is, sorry, I love the animation. I wish it was just default. I might actually make an alias to do that, but anyways, so once you're in Copilot CLI, what you can do now is, I think I've got something messed up with my GitHub on my computer for the delegate command, but what you can do is with delegate in a prompt is you can have it'll actually go and I believe it either spins up a coding agent and but it will basically create a PR and do all that stuff automatically from the CLI. But what I'm going to demonstrate is you can actually switch into your agent. So if I type in slash agent, I can now choose an agent that currently exists, and I'm going to use the front end developer expert. And what I want to do here is I want to add something a little. I want to add a little sparkle to our website. I want to make it a little bit flashier, a little bit more fun to visit, and I want to let's add fireworks whenever I click the mouse on the homepage. And what it's going to do is it's using this front end agent as the persona to do the development. It's using it in think of it like agent mode. So like if you use chat modes in the past, it's like using a chat mode. So it's currently doing the work as that agent. And I'm gonna go ahead and just let it. I'm gonna approve. I would normally, I mean, like that one I think is okay to check out a new branch, but when for the sake of the demo, I'm probably just gonna approve things unless it's like somehow deleting my entire disk. But basically, you want to, like Daniel said earlier, you're gonna own the outcome. And while this is running, yes, I'll let it do that. And but while this is running, I kind of want to bring up there's a book that just came out recently called Vibe Coding by Gene Kim and Steve Yegi. I don't know how to say his last name, but one of the things they talk about is no matter what, you own the outcome of whether you wrote the code or AI did. And so I just wanted to reiterate that point that it's not just us saying it. It's literally like it's going to be very important for you to continue to own the software that you write or the AI writes under your supervision. The way that they put it in the book is kind of like you go from being a line cook to if in a restaurant you go from being a line cook to being a head chef, and then you have AI agents are kind of like your sous chefs, and so you kind of go into orchestration and coordinating, and that becomes how you interact with AI to have everything work for you. So it looks like it made a branch and it committed the changes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit that setting and or not setting, exit the CLI and just run the app. And it's open at localhost 3000. I don't, mine's not saying compiling. Maybe mine's faster than Daniel's.
It didn't do that until I actually accessed the site. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
well, we'll see. Although yours
Ah,
probably is faster than my laptop.
yeah. So it says compiling. Here it is. Look at that. We got fireworks. All right. Cool.
Definitely the best feature you could have on your website.
Yeah. I mean, we can change the colors and everything too. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to show that like how easy it is for you in Copilot CLI to switch into using one of your agents. You just type in slash agent and then you are doing everything through that agent when you're in that session. I'll go ahead and stop that. We can open up Copilot banner again if we want. It's pretty snazzy. But yeah, if at any time you want to switch to another agent, you just type in slash agent and you switch between them. So um, yeah, so I'll go ahead and exit that. Uh, let's see. Do we want to check in on how this guy's doing? It looks like it's still working on that TDD agent, which, if I'm being honest, you probably want to write your own agent. You probably want like you can do some interaction with AI to like have it prompt you doing something like reverse prompting to ask you questions about what you want the agent to do and responsibilities for it and things like that. So I'm kind of using coding agent is a little bit overkill to just like go make a new agent. I just was doing that as an example of kicking it off from within VS Code. But
And also, I want to point out the view Patrick's in right now in the chat here is basically the same as mission control on github.com, just
yeah,
inside VS Code.
that is correct. But I mean, with that, I mean, to what I would say is that GitHub Copilot, by doing custom agents, this release that came out, or I guess this preview release, what I would say is it's a step in the direction of if anyone's familiar with things like Claude Code or even cursor agents, like there's this multi-agent type of way of working. GitHub Copilot is getting there as far as like having multiple agents running simultaneously and delegating. But this handoffs is, I think, the first step in that direction. But definitely being able to coordinate multiple coding agents at the same time through mission control and being able to steer them. I don't know what the technical term is yet, but I've been calling it interjecting context when you're in mission control to steer it. It's basically you're steering the agent. So like you could have multiple things going on at the same time and like checking on them, and then like almost like a suit or a head chef going and checking. I keep coming back to the chef analogy because I like to imagine it's like Hell's Kitchen and you get to be Gordon Ramsay and like the different chefs are working on a dish and you get to like jump in and be like, like, oh, this is, what did you do? Microwave it or something? And then you can like kind of change it or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird way to imagine it, but whenever I heard the chef analogy, I just went straight to Hell's Kitchen, and it's been entertaining to think of it that way. But I think as far as the demo goes, I think that's all I've got for custom agents. So Daniel, if you want to take it back, you're more than
Yeah.
welcome.
Okay. So that is pretty much it for the demo stuff. So, Copilot code review, we did show this. This is in public preview. If you have Pro Plus, it's already enabled. If you're business or enterprise, you need to opt in just to make sure everything's stable. This was not obvious just by running stuff, but under the hood, this now uses tool calling to get project context just so it does a better job in general. You won't directly see that, but you should get more relevant results. And soon, this is going to integrate with CodeQL and linters, starting with ESLint, to combine what it already does with static checks. We saw this in the demo, give coding agent tasks directly from a PR, and it will apply those in a stacked PR. We saw this as well. Use just this normal Copilot instructions file to, and that affects coding agent as well to steer the coding agent. GitHub Code Quality. This is a new feature, which is different from CodeQL. So just from those names, you can tell Microsoft is now in control of GitHub. But this is available for Enterprise Cloud and Team, but not Enterprise Server. So it is free during this preview period, but while it's running, you'll still pay for the action minutes that it runs on. So I'll show this. This is a new dashboard on GitHub.com, and it gives you little ratings for like the security health of your repo. So it has standard findings like normal CodeQL stuff, but it also has AI findings now. And it is for these supported languages. If I had to guess, these are just the 6 most common languages on GitHub. And it will soon have these things. So org level dashboards, test coverage metrics. I have an exclamation mark there because I love test coverage. Not just the dashboard, but APIs to get that same data. And then, like I said on the previous slide, you'll get Copilot powered recommendations in your PR, not just like these static analysis tool recommendations. They're like, oh, we detected this, you shouldn't do that. So let me show that real quick before I go to this slide. I can demo this guy real quick. Is if I go to the security tab where it says 8 up here, and then you'll see there's this tab here that says code quality now on the left side. So I can go to standard findings and you'll see, oh, I've got these little rankings now. Which beforehand, one of the things I asked Copilot to do was purposefully put some insecure code in here to trigger the CodeQL stuff. So here's something I found. This is just a maintainability thing, but unused variable, which is correct. I'm creating some things and then never using them, right? And then if I go to AI findings, this other tab on the left, it's got 7 findings. So this is stuff that the static analysis did not catch, right? This is just like semantic AI stuff that it was looking for. And it is correct. I am checking, which obviously these are fake, so don't try to steal my stuff. It said, hey, you have like plain text passwords and API keys just checked into your repository. You probably shouldn't do that. And a little more interesting, it's saying, hey, you're creating a token with math.random. And this explanation here says it's cryptographically insecure as it's predictable. You should use crypto random bytes instead. So here's a suggestion on how to fix that. I think that's pretty cool. Another suggestion, I'm using a deprecated algorithm. So use modern one like AES instead. And so this is pretty cool. You get AI findings, not just static analysis stuff, and then you get these little nice ratings up here. Can kind of help you determine where might be best to first take action and where. Okay, like where specifically in the code. So if you were like me, when you heard about this, you said, hold on, CodeQL already exists. GitHub Code Quality is a new feature. Are these different things? What are they over? What's going on here? So here's what I was able to dig up from their new feature explanation. CodeQL triggers on GitHub Actions. You probably already have this in your org. You'll see a little check when you make a PR. It's probably in your GitHub Action YAML files for your workflows. Code quality, when you enable it, it's going to give you a little message. It's like, hey, this could take a while because I'm going to run it on your whole repo. So it runs on your whole repo. And then it runs on PRs as well. So CodeQL, it will review just like static analysis and scanning stuff and tell you about that. And code quality, like we saw, it's got that dashboard view. It will give you PR comments, but since it has AI powered stuff, it'll also give you autofix suggestions for those, like we saw. Like I've been saying, CodeQL, how it works is static analysis. Code quality also uses static analysis, but it has the AI analysis in there too. CodeQL in my experience, is usually for security type things. Like, hey, you shouldn't do this because it's an auth problem, something like that. Code quality does do that, but it's kind of everything. It's like also going to give you code maintainability issues, tech debt kind of things, code quality. So in my mind, these are overlapping quite a bit. Code quality just gives you more and a nice dashboard to look at everything. Also, again, this isn't obvious, you won't see this, but under the covers in coding agents workflow, it does an initial inline review before you even see the results. So the idea is that'll just allow it to give you a better final message, final results. Long story short, it should work better, right? Okay, metrics and governance. This will be pretty fast because it's just screenshots. This is for whoever is managing the Copilot stuff for your org. So for all enterprise cloud customers that are using Copilot, is the suite of governance tools to give you more control over the Copilot agents. It is also now the permanent home for enterprise level policies and how you configure Copilot, basically. So it's this consolidated view of these administrative things. I'll show you on the next screen. So you can see here, there's now this AI controls tab if you have enterprise, and you have different settings for agents, Copilot, MCP, which MCP servers you want devs to be able to use. You can see here you have audit logs. You also, with these custom agents that Patrick and I showed, you can define like org-wide custom agents. So you can put them here, and like every dev in your enterprise will be able to use these custom agents. So you can see them all in one place. And this is kind of cool. The actual static path where the custom agents are, like the markdown file, you can like give different protection rules from edits in case you want to lock those down differently. So I thought that was pretty cool. And like I said, you can have coding agents at the enterprise level. Metrics, dashboard, and API. I thought this was pretty cool, but it's another thing that you need enterprise for. So I won't be able to show you. But this is pretty much what it sounds like. And I think it's what a lot of people have been wanting for Copilot. All right, this is a place where you can see the usage metrics for Copilot across your org. The catch I will say to this, the caveat, is it only applies to Copilot use in IDEs, in the IDE shown here. So that means GitHub.com, CLI, anything else that's not an IDE will not be captured in these dashboards. Okay, so that's pretty notable in my opinion. I do think IDE use is probably most of the use, but it's not 100%, right? Most likely. So useful for seeing like daily and weekly usage. How many people are actually adopting Copilot, right? How many lines of code were added or deleted? Which languages are people using AI with? What models are they using? You can get like this nice broad view of how people in your org are using Copilot. Probably a good idea to review these every once in a while, right? And kind of repeated myself there, but in general, like, how are your devs using it, right? Are they using it just as like autocomplete, or are they using it for advanced tasks, right? Like refactoring and debugging and problem solving. So here is a screenshot of it. You can see there's this insights tab on the org level, and there's Copilot usage. So in my mind, this dashboard is pretty awesome. This is basically exactly what people managing Copilot at the org level have been wanting. So here it is. In addition to the dashboard, there is going to be an API that you can fetch the same data from in case you want to do your own stuff with it. Okay, last section, and maybe my favorite one, just because I think reports are pretty interesting. I like reading the Stack Overflow report every year. I like reading the JetBrains one. The difference with the Octaverse report is that this is not a survey. There were no people being surveyed. This is stats taken from a public GitHub activity, okay? From September 1st last year to August 31st this year. I'm going to call them mini sections because they're so short. There's 7 mini sections in the Octaverse report. Growth, productivity, countries, open source, security, languages, and of course, AI. I talk about AI. So let's go through these real quick. First is growth. First of all, GitHub is growing. It's growing a lot. About one dev joined every second this year. I shouldn't say year, but this time period that they did the report in. So that's plus 23% from the last report. That's pretty big. Plus, 200, about 230 repos per minute were created. 121 million more since last report. And between public and open source repos, there's now 395 million, which is 72 million more than last time. That's a lot. So they say this coincides with the release of the free tier of Copilot. So here's their little graph. You can see, there's a pretty steady curve from 21 to 24, then it kind of levels out. And then Copilot free gets released, and it's even steeper than it was before, right? Just kind of exploding after that. So makes sense. Copilot free drives GitHub Copilot drives people to use GitHub.com. That makes sense. Now, this is pretty interesting. Most repos are public at 63%, but the vast majority of work, over 80%, happens in private repos. So you can see here that almost 5 billion contributions in private repos, just a little over 1 billion in public. That's a pretty big difference. So they interpret this as most actual day-to-day work happens in private repos, which I totally agree with. Enterprise repos, all that stuff, it's not public. But those enterprise repos depend on public libraries and frameworks and stuff. That's open source work, which makes sense to me. Productivity. This was the most active 12-month period in GitHub ever. So here's some numbers. Issues closed, PRs merged, code pushes, all up at least 20% more than the last 12-month period. Okay. What I thought was interesting, I'm not sure the cause of this, is from 24 to 25, there is 27% less comments on commits. So I don't know why that could be. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? It could be good because commit quality is improving. I don't have anything to say. It looks good. Or it could be bad because we're using AI and I'm just not human reviewing stuff anymore, right? So I thought that was notable, but wasn't necessarily sure what that meant. Jupyter notebooks and Docker files, these are just massive now and how common they are. So you can see 2024 compared to 2025, both almost up 100% each. 75% for Jupyter notebooks and 120% for Docker files. So GitHub said this is probably because LLMs, everyone's using an LLM now. People want to sandbox them because that's secure. Docker files give you a scalable way to do that, and Jupyter notebooks are just common when you're using LLMs, right? So these are both just massive now. Countries, where are people using GitHub? Something interesting is that 1 in 3 new devs that joined GitHub were not in a top 10 country from 2020. So it's getting more diverse, right? Everyone's using AI. This is a global thing. It's not just a few countries. Finally, India is forecasted by 2030 to slightly outpace the US in the number of devs there. So forecasts are always a little iffy in my mind. We'll see how that goes. But here's the numbers. So India is number 2. The United States has been number 1, and that hasn't changed. What I do find interesting is that even though the United States has been the steady number 1, they still had a 21% increase over 5 years, which is pretty big, right? So it's saying the number 1, but it's also still seeing big increase. Some takeaways here that Japan, Indonesia, and Brazil are all growing a fair amount. Open source. How's open source doing? Well, it's doing pretty darn well. It is also kind of exploding. Public repos, contributions, merge PRs, these all went up by almost 20%, right? Merge PRs went up by almost 30%. And actually, March 2025 was the largest month ever for open source contributions. They had 255,000. That's pretty cool. And 6 of the 10 fastest growing repos are AI focused. So stuff like Klein, I think the Zen browser was on there. If anyone's familiar with that, it had plus 2,100% growth or something. The MCP repo by Anthropic hit 36,000 stars in under a year, just 8 months. And it's not just AI stuff that's growing. VS Code is the number 2 repo by contributions. That's still huge. Godot, if anyone is game dev in here, I'm a Godot guy, which I did not know is the number 5 repo. Those are still huge. They haven't stopped growing in any way. They're still attracting contributors. Now, only 2% of public repos have a code of conduct, and I think it was only 6% have a README file. So do those things. I encourage both of those. Even on private repos, you should have a README file. Everyone should have a README file. Security, something, I'm curious if anyone has any guesses. Something overtook injection this year to become the number 1 alert in GitHub's CodeQL. Does anyone have a guess as to what that might be? It is related to AI. It's a hint. It is broken access control. So over 151,000 repos were detected with this, which is almost 200% more than year over year, which is pretty bad. Basically, this means because of your code, one way or another, someone is getting access to something they shouldn't. So they explained this. They said a lot of this is because of AI generated code that is just skipping auth checks. All right, it didn't make the auth stuff correctly. Humans didn't review it probably. It's coming from that and misconfigured permissions and pipelines. However, some good stuff. Average fix time for critical vulnerabilities has improved 30%. That's good. And 26% less repos with critical alerts. So those are good things. And devs are automating more, just in general. That's not a surprise. Building, testing, security, we're automating more. Lots more GitHub action minutes, as you can see here, 35% more. Dependent bot stuff in general hasn't really changed that much, barely almost 1% increase in PRs opened. Actually, slightly less dependent bot PRs merged, so not sure what that means. But repos with dependent bot, over 100% more. So that's pretty cool. I forgot to put animations on this, so here's the answer. I was going to ask you. The most active time for dependent bot alerts was actually December 2022. Because this, if anyone remembers this is when the log4j vulnerability happened, which was caused by this log4 shell. And pretty close to the same time frame, this OpenSSL vulnerability was happening. So just stuff was exploding at that time. And only 1 in 3 fixes ship in the same month that Dependabot proposes it. And they generally follow this pattern where this spike happens when a vulnerability is made apparent. And then there's this long tail of unresolved notifications, right? So I think the takeaway from this is don't let that be you. Don't be the long tail there. Languages, Python was surpassed as the most used language. Does anyone have a guess as to what is the number 1 now? It's probably what you think. It's not a trick question. Go forward. It is TypeScript. JavaScript is already huge, but TypeScript is big now, and it didn't surpass it by a lot, really. 42,000 contributors. But Python still leads by far, not even close, in AI tagged repos. Python's still massive for AI. That being said, 80% of new repos were only these 6 languages. Python, JavaScript, and TypeScript, which I kind of count as one. Java, C++, and C#. So I'm happy to see that as a C# man myself. I believe they said C# has been at a steady 10% for years, 10 to 11%. And that being said, all together, TypeScript and Python together still only account for 3% of all active GitHub devs. So it's still very diverse, even though there's some clear leaders. So here they are. Here's their little chart. You can see JavaScript, Python, and TypeScript have kind of always led the way, right? What I think is kind of funny is Java, C#, and PHP have had no change for years. It's been at the same spot, completely a straight line. Also think it's kind of funny that Shell is up here because I don't really count that as a programming language, really. It's like a scripting for tasks and stuff, but it's probably just so common that it's up here. So that is interesting. And again, for Python and AI, repos, not even close. Python in 2025 just shot above everything else, right? And the next highest thing is not even a language, it's Jupyter Notebooks. And then JavaScript and TypeScript are down here. So lastly, we have AI. You got to talk about AI. Nearly 80% of new developers on GitHub use Copilot in their first week on GitHub. That's pretty noteworthy, I think. Probably coincides with that free tier, right? AI related repos almost doubled in just under 2 years. So they're now over 4.3 million. And half of open source projects have at least one maintainer using Copilot. So it's just kind of everywhere, even in open source, right? And I was actually kind of surprised by this. 178% more public repos now depend on generative AI SDKs. So in my head, that means these repos are actually using AI in their code, not just helping them to code. So I was kind of surprised by that. And here's that graph, just kind of shooting up in the last year. And this is contributors shooting up at the beginning of this year to Gen AI projects. So takeaways from this report, AI adoption is not slowing down, really. It's exploding, right? AI adoption and development. GitHub itself is kind of exploding, getting really big, probably related to Microsoft acquiring it, putting some more money into it. AI is both helping to create and fix vulnerabilities faster. It's less hype now and more part of just like it's here. It's part of developers' workflow, right? And most work is enterprise work, but most of that work depends on open source stuff. Okay, so recap this presentation. We're closing up here, almost at time. We went through Agent HQ and Mission Control and custom agents. We showed you some demos with that on github.com and VS Code, kicking off some tasks with that, seeing some pretty cool stuff in web apps, and kicking it off from Slack. Talked about some new quality and security, as well as some metrics and governance features. And then I just went over the report. If you are curious, like I said, you can find all of this stuff in this link. It's going to take you a long time to go through everything on there, as a fair warning. Here's the demo. This is a public repo if you want to poke around in it, the repo that Patrick and I used for this demo. And if you're like, man, this presentation was cool, GitHub's all right, but I just want to get more of Daniel, totally get it. December 2nd, I will be giving a short 16-minute presentation on GitHub Copilot tips and tricks. And on December 10th, Patrick and Scott, Sauber, and I will be going over what's new in .NET 10, since for any .NET folks in here, .NET Conf is happening. And .NET 10 is releasing, all the new stuff is coming out, so we're going to cover that. And you can sign up for those events at Lean Techniques website. You can just go to the resources at the top banner and then go to events. So 5 takeaways for this whole presentation. What's my value here, right? What can I glean from this? So use AI as a tool, not just as a developer itself, right? So that means you need to be reviewing it. Human review is non-negotiable. But also don't necessarily just use it as a helper in your IDE. Use that mission control on github.com and VS Code, have it orchestrate stuff for you ahead of time, and then you go through and maybe use that as a starting point there. And that's basically point number 3 as well. AI governance, they're kind of giving you tools to do that at scale now, so do it, right? You have metrics and controls for that now to reduce risk and get more value from it. And documentation is more important than ever. We have increased risks and vulnerabilities happening, and those are AI related, and people are not making readmes and stuff like that. So do those.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate that. If there are any questions or if you want to chat further, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us here at Lean Techniques. This video will be published, and the slides will be being shared with anyone who has registered. So just one last thing, we would love to hear your feedback. There will be a quick survey that populates when you close this session. If you have the opportunity to share your thoughts, we appreciate it. Daniel, Patrick, they appreciate it. We're an organization about continuous learning and continuous improvement, and we want to do better for you as our community going forward in the future. With that, thank you so much to Daniel and to Patrick and for those participating. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.